Just 10 minutes today of light activity can get meaningful changes in the emotional processing areas of your brain.
Have we understood enough that exercise is just as powerful for our mental health as it is for our physical health?
I think now we're at the point where we can say, without reservation, that moving around in your daily life is beneficial for your mental well-being and your mental health just as much as it is your physical health. You're right in that the focus generally in society and in medicine has been about how does it improve our physical health, and often at an individual or societal level it was, if I move around and exercise more, how does it make me look, how does it make me feel or fit into my clothes. But really we're trying to frame the conversation to be quite different around saying, how does physical activity and exercise make you feel? Does it make you feel good? And that's very much the focus of the research, what we're doing. And we can say really, really strongly that when you look at big populations of people, moving around in your daily life and different types of exercise can really help build up resilience, reduce the risk of developing adverse mental well-being and even mental health conditions also.
We know that moving makes us feel good.
Yeah.
But I think what you've done so well is move it beyond that sort of human intuition to actually get some hard science on this.
So I think there's a few key research papers which provide good data. One is which we published in the American Journal of Psychiatry in 2018. It was led by Professor Felipe Schuch, who's a professor of physical activity in Brazil. And essentially we did something really, really simple, is we wanted to look at everything that had ever been published on how active people are in their daily lives and the risk or odds of developing depression in the future. And we followed those 260,000 people who were free from depression or any adverse mental health or well-being at baseline, followed them for an average of 7.5 years. And we found that people who were most active compared to the least active were around 15% less likely to develop depression in the future. But the most potent effect was when people were meeting recommended government guidelines of, say, 30 minutes 5 times a week or 150 minutes over the course of a week. And there's around a 30% reduced risk or odds of developing depression in the future. So longitudinally... 30% reduced risk or odds in the future. So we've been able to, we're following people free from depression at baseline, following them over time. So we've prospectively or over time shown there is a direction in the relationship between being more active and reduced risk or odds of depression in the future.
So that's predictive in the sense that if someone's listening to this now and goes, okay, what does that mean for me? If they currently do not have a mental health diagnosis, and they're feeling pretty good, they're feeling okay, but let's say they're worried about the growing rates of mental health problems, or they have a family member, let's say, that particular paper is suggesting for them is that if they meet those government guidelines of activity, they are 30% less likely to develop depression at some point in the future.
Yes, that is essentially the message.
The way we look at nutrition and lifestyle and things like exercise, it's never really been deemed real medicine. And therefore, it's almost as if the onus is on us to prove to a much higher degree that, this kind of basic stuff can really work. Do you know what I mean? I
do.
It's really frustrating because it's so powerful.
So powerful. And it's just, the evidence now is accumulating in such mass, which is just wonderful because we have the credibility to say this can help prevent adverse mental health, but also be used as a real viable treatment for people who are presenting with depression as well. And perhaps one of the examples I use when I work with people as well is saying, you don't have to wait 12 or 16 weeks to feel the benefits. Yeah. There was a really nice randomized controlled trial done in Japan. And one of the areas which is implicated as being reduced in people with depression and other cognitive disorders is the area of the brain called the hippocampus, which is really important to consolidate our memories from short to long term and processing of emotions. So this is often reduced in mental health conditions. And what they did in this study in Japan was something really, really simple. They randomized people, so again, gold standard evidence, to sit still in a functional magnetic resonance imaging scanner, or to sit down in a functional magnetic resonance imaging scanner and cycle very, very lightly on the spot. And they looked at people's brains live, which an fMRI enables you to do. And what they showed in this randomized controlled trial is just 10 minutes of light, very, very, very light activity, the equivalent to just gentle walking, could result in meaningful changes in electrical activity happening within the hippocampus and also other emotional processing areas of the brain. So just 10 minutes today of light activity can get meaningful changes in the emotional processing areas of your brain.
And the volume of the hippocampus as well, I think, on one study I saw.
Yeah, so we've also done studies as well where we've looked at changes in the volume, and obviously that's really exciting because neuroplasticity, or changing the structure of the brain, is really important and changed in many mental health care conditions. And we've shown that with aerobic exercise over a 12-week period, you can get changes in the volume of the hippocampus.
I mean, this is
12 weeks.
This is mind-blowing information, because ultimately what we're saying is that moving regularly can change the size of a very important part of your brain. You know, the memory center in many ways, the hippocampus, you can change in size by regularly being active. And it's about, for me, it's about how do you reframe the conversation around movement and exercise. So it's not about your appearance and your weight. It's so much more varied than that. There's so much more exciting things to talk about than that. You know, it changes the structure of your brain, your nerve cells. You know, we've not even mentioned BDNF today, you know, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, this hormone that goes up when you exercise, which helps to create new nerve cells, new nerve connections. And it's like, this is exciting stuff that we have access to if we move more. It's just remarkable how small things, when done consistently, add up very, very quickly. It's not about a 1-hour spinning class 3 times a week. If you can do that, go for your life. But if you can't, don't let that put you off.
Exactly. And today, you, I, anybody can get meaningful changes in the electrical activity in the brain fertilizer. You mentioned BDNF, just from moving around more today. And we've shown that in randomized controlled trials as well. You can increase BDNF. We can change, our brain connectivity and actions today.
Do we know, for example, if for particular conditions or problems that, is aerobic training better? Is strength training better? Is interval training better? Or are we not quite there yet with the research?
My personal opinion is find something you enjoy, you find pleasurable, and then stick to it, whether it's aerobic, resistance, dancing, whatever. That should be what you go to. What does the actual evidence say? So the evidence says that, within the context of, perhaps we start off in depression, is that both aerobic and resistance training are very good and beneficial for people's mental health. There's also evidence in anxiety symptoms and anxiety disorders as well, including PTSD, that aerobic and resistance training is positive for people. And there's an emerging evidence base around other sort of mind-body interventions such as yoga, saying it can improve people's depressive and anxiety symptoms also. So I don't think we can say that one is superior to the other. I think we're very much moving towards what an individual prefers, finding what they enjoy, and there's evidence growing for each of them. To date, the evidence base is largely focused on aerobic training because that's where most of the research and research funding has gone. And by aerobic, mean by moving around in any way where you get your heart rate up.
So that could even be walking.
That could be brisk walking. And we tend to categorize physical activity or exercise in intensities. So low intensity could be just moving around the house or very gently walking. Moderate intensity activity could be where you're briskly walking and you're perhaps finding it a bit difficult to talk when you're walking around and panting for your breath. And then hard or vigorous physical activity is when you're really sort of panting and struggling to maintain a conversation, such as a vigorous game of squash or sprinting. But all of those have beneficial impacts for our physical and our mental health. But to date, the focus in guidelines generally has all been about how much can we do of moderate and vigorous physical activity. And we've completely neglected the importance and also the enjoyment of light activity. And there's emerging evidence, we've got a paper coming out in Lancet Psychiatry soon looking at adolescents, showing that to protect against depressive symptoms in adolescence, that it's actually light physical activities such as moving around and perhaps light playing, which can protect against mental health symptoms in the future. And it doesn't have to be this really hard, fast sort of sport exercise. Fundamentally, physical activity is any bodily movement where you're moving and you're expending energy. So dancing, moving, cycling, walking to make a cup of tea, all of this can help to make you feel better.
Yeah, for sure. I always like to finish the podcast with some tips for people. So I wonder if you've got your top tips to inspire the listeners to get moving.
If you look at psychological or any behavioural literature, people who maintain behaviours, whatever behaviour it may be, do it when they enjoy it. So find something you enjoy and stick at it and continue to challenge yourself and change it as you go along. And just rest assured that just a couple of minutes a day of movement can increase, your feelings of happiness within your mental health and make meaningful changes within your brain as well.
Really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Please do think about one thing that you can take and apply into your life. Inspiration is not enough, you need to take action. If you did enjoy that, please do press subscribe, hit that notification bell, and why not check out this conversation that I picked out that acts as the perfect follow-up.